I'm Deb Bunnell. I'm a teaching artist with the Southern Alleghenies Museum of Art and also the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. I'm standing in front of a painting I did of puppies. Those are my two little brothers. That's me in the middle. We're all holding puppies. And I did it this way to show how I feel inside my head when I'm around puppies. I just feel these joyful little explosions. And that's kind of how I feel about mixing colors. I think it's one of the most exciting things about painting. You can see what colors do next to each other. You can see how they influence each other when they're mixed in different proportions with each other. And you can give all kinds of mood and feeling to your painting by mixing color rather than painting straight out of the tube, like a lot of beginners do. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, but it's good to have the ability to know what colors to mix. We will start with a tour of my paint box. We will then construct a color wheel and learn about different types of color. And then we will make a 9-section grid on a canvas board or canvas to start a painting. Yours could be any subject you want. Mine will be a lion. Check this out. As Bert the Chimney Sweep once said in Mary Poppins, this is the doorway to a place of enchantment. These paints are made by Golden. Some say open on them. That means they have a slower drying time. I'm actually making the transition back to the regular acrylics with the fast drying time because it suits my style better. And I really have more colors in my paint box, but these are the ones I think are essential. Next is my fire colors. I have a medium and a light red. One's PYRROLE and one's cadmium. I have a cadmium orange and a HANSA yellow light. CP before cadmium means chemically pure. We're going to use the PYRROLE red for our color wheel. It's a nice medium tone of red, and the HANSA yellow for our color wheel also. Also the cadmium orange for the color wheel. Next I have my greens and blues here. If it says phthalo on it, it is like a wild child among colors. It has a brilliance to it, a transparency, and it's a lot of fun to work with. The Hooker's green is more of an earthy tone, and ultramarine is like all American blue. We'll be using the phthalo green for the green in the color wheel, but for the blue we'll use the ultramarine blue. Here are my two purplish colors. Dioxazine purple looks black on there, but it's a great purple to have. And quin magenta is a fabulous color too. For the color wheel, we'll be using dioxazine purple. This group of colors are my earth tones. The workhorses of my earth tone paints are burnt umber and burnt sienna. I love to mix those with different blues and white to create beautiful shades of gray. Raw sienna and yellow oxide are my golden colors. This big boy here, this is my tube of titanium white. It's really usually the biggest tube in most artists' boxes. We're ready to put together our color wheel. Here's our palette we worked on before. You'll see that I added some white right to the middle of it, just because we're going to make a little tint of each color. A tint is when you add white to a color, to see how that looks. So I always like to start with my red, PYRROLE red. We'll put it, ooh, I almost dropped a blob of it. Okay, we'll put it in this blob right up here. And let's make a big circle. Those rough edges, that's what we call painterly. We'll smooth out some of those lumps. Now, right near where the red was, across from the red, I'm going to drag out some white. See how I'm contaminating that white? I won't draw right from the middle because then all the white would be contaminated with red. But like this, it's there's still a lot of pure white I can use with the other colors. Here we go. Oh, that didn't do much, did it? That red is a strong color, so let's use a little more white. And there you can see we're starting to get a little bit of pink there. So our next primary color, let's go with some yellow. Now we're going to add white to the yellow on the inside part of it. And it will not make a huge difference, I'm going to guess. Well, there you can see. I almost whited it out there. White's really useful for adding to your yellow in a painting, because sometimes if you try to cover something with yellow paint, it won't because it's so transparent. But if you add a little white to the yellow, it will cover better. The primary color we're missing is blue. Here is our ultramarine blue. That yellow spreads so much better. That's okay. This is a nice, rich ultramarine blue. And the edges of my circles aren't perfect. We'll call them painterly. That's a good name for seeing the brush strokes. And I'm drawing my white for the blue from another corner of the white, so I won't contaminate the other parts of the white with color. That's their baby blue. I'm going to wipe some paint off on my palette here. And just sometimes you have too much paint on your brush and you just need to wipe it off to do what you want to do, because I want to see if I can get a darker tint. There we go. There you can see what that blue does. Okay, so let's go for some secondary colors. There are primary colors. Those are the colors you learn from kindergarten on, that you can mix all the colors from these three colors. That's kind of true. Kind of true. So now let's do some orange. Here we go. This orange is nice and gooey like the yellow. I'm tempted to take a really big blob of it, but that would be wrong because it would fall off the brush onto my pants. So I'm drawing from another corner of the white that's not contaminated with any other color. Just get this nice pale orange there. Okay, we don't have any of this green, this phthalo green. It looks almost black, I'm sure, in the video. This will be, I saved green and purple for the last because they have a nice surprise when you add white to them. And green goes here. I haven't put any at the wrong space yet, which is great. Even as I spread it out on the white, you can, when the white paper glows through, you can start to see what a glowing color a phthalo is. This is phthalo green. Make the whole circle. Put in there. Even it up a little bit. Okay. Now, I'm just going to take white from where the blue was because the blue didn't contaminate it that much. And took a pretty big blob of white. You almost get an aquish color there. That's nice. I'm going to wipe some color off of my brush here. Get it a little bit drier and do some more blending so you can see a more medium shade of that. A tint. It's a tint. When you add white, it's a tint. So there we go. There's green. We saved purple for last. Look how nice and wet and gooey that is. And there's the space for purple, right up between red and yellow. And that's just flowing right on there. It's so dark. So dark and nice. I use purple a lot in my paintings. I like to use it for shadows. Tone down green sometime. Okay, that looks almost black. This is going to be so cool to add white to this. Okay, I don't know if you can see the palette there. Okay, now. Boy, I didn't even get much of a lavender there. Just went into a color that you can now recognize as purple. Let me take some of that off my brush. Now the palette's getting interesting looking, isn't it? Yeah. And get some more pure white. Let's see if we can achieve a lavender down here. There we go. And I'm taking some of that off my brush too, to see if I can get a in between. I took more care with the purple and other colors than I did with the red, but that's okay. You can still see how the red ended up. Okay, there are the colors. We have our primaries and our secondaries. You may be thinking, when are we going to get around to mixing some colors? Well, we will be mixing 9 sets of 2 colors plus white. But first I'm going to tell you what colors we will not be mixing, and those would be the analogous colors. If you don't want to remember that word, just remember colors that are side by side on the color wheel. Colors that are next door neighbors to each other on the color wheel are analogous. And when you mix them, it's pretty easy and the result is not very surprising, even though it can be beautiful. I'll show you some examples. You can see red blending into purple on the corner of this wagon here. It's a nice smooth blend. Purple makes a great shadow sometimes in red. Here's red blending into orange, the color of fire. It's fun to blend fiery colors. Yellow is seen here blending into green. It only takes a little bit of green for yellow not to be yellow anymore. And in the next one, yellow will be blending into orange. That can be a very soft blend, as seen in this shadow at the bottom of the car. Next, we'll have blue blending into purple. Makes a nice nighttime sky for this nebula scene. And when blue blends into green, you get all kinds of aquas and turquoises, as in this moose here. So, what colors will we mix? Starting with red, we know we're not going to mix it with orange or purple. Let's go for the furthest color from red, right across from it on the color wheel. Got my Sharpie ready. Let's mix. One of our sets will be red and green. Those colors are called complements. The color directly across from another color on the color wheel is called complementary, or its complement. And let's just mark the other two complements now. This will give us 3 sets of complementary colors. That line's all crossed in the middle. It's almost as if I had it sketched out beforehand. Also, what else could we mix red with that it's not analogous to? Well, we could mix it with blue, and we could mix it with yellow. We could mix it with the other 2 primaries. And we kind of know what colors we'll get when we mix primaries together. Except there are so many different shades of red and so many different shades of blue and yellow that you never quite know until you do it. So those are the 3 colors we'll be mixing red with. So we'll mix red and blue, red and green, red and yellow. Now how about blue? We mix blue with its complement, orange. We're not mixing it with green or purple, too easy. But we're going to mix it with red, that's already in there, and we're going to mix it with yellow. All right, so we'll have a triangle joining the complements. The primaries, a triangle joining the primaries. So now, that's 3 more sets of color pairs. We still need to find some more colors for the secondaries to join with. So we know for orange, we won't be mixing it with red or yellow, but we will mix it with green and we'll mix it with purple. It's already being mixed with blue because that's its complement. But this will be interesting. These are 2 secondary colors mixed together. Orange with green and orange with purple. Now it looks like a design that just needs one more line to make it work. So purple and green haven't been joined yet. So green is one of the colors we'll mix with purple. Not mixing purple with blue or red, too easy. But we're going to try it with green. And we also mix purple with yellow and purple with orange. So that little star shows the 9 pairs of colors we will be using. So I figured out where I want to put my colors in each rectangle, which pair I want in each rectangle. I have organized it so it makes a little bit of sense by putting the primary colors in the top row. The middle row will have the complements of each other, and the very bottom row will have the secondary colors. So the other thing I took into account was the picture I'm putting in here.
My lion's eyes will land in these two squares in the upper right, two rectangles actually, right about there, and his nose is going down here. And I thought it would be nice to have yellow for the eyes. The mane is huge, takes up about 2/3 of the whole thing. And there's the upper left-hand corner doesn't have much in it, just a little bit of mane and a little back. And here is a close-up of the entire rough sketch. The final painting will look a lot different from this copyrighted photograph of a lion. We're just using it to get the proportions of the face right. I sometimes like using a grid to get my image onto the bigger surface that I'm going to work on. This image is an 8x10, which if you multiply both those numbers by 3, you get 24x30, which is the size of the canvas board I'm working on. And that'll give us 9 pretty nice sized areas to make our different colors in. So he's divided into 9 squares, so is my canvas board. In this corner, I've divided the rectangles into quarters. You can see, because this is the most detailed area, and that's what I want to get right. You can see I sketched this in a little bit with pencil, and I'm going to outline it in Sharpie so you can see where things go better. I'm starting here with the eye. Things that come right to the corner of some place in the grid are easy to locate. I have to be careful to draw the eye the same size it seems on the reference, because eyes are easy to draw too big. That's the first place we look at when we look at an animal or a person, the eyes. So that there's a little corner of the eye there that goes over the line of one of the grid quarters that I made. And the inner part of the eye is a little bit asymmetrical with the black part. I'm drawing the white part that goes below the black part. And he has some interesting eyebrows on to give him a great expression. A line going down the middle of the forehead. Some of us have a line going down the middle of the forehead too. Trying to find out the borders of his face. There's where one of the ears is, and then other ear is over here. They're a little bit hidden by the mane, but you'll still be able to see them. I'm getting the edge of the temple here and trying to figure out where his fur stops. There's a cheekbone right in there. There's a shadow there. I think the short fur goes a little beyond that until it becomes a mane. Get that sketched in there. I use a lot of math when I'm gridding in my head. I think, is something 1/3 of the way up the line? Is it 1/4 of the way up the line? Is it right around half? If it's around half, is it just above or just below half? So if you get used to estimating halves, quarters, and thirds, it makes your gridding easier. And just use that math part of your brain. You can use that when you're drawing freehand too, when you're sketching something. Just measure how big things are in comparison to another thing in your drawing. You get more accurate proportions. Here's the side of the mane going on, and the cheekbone and the face over here. And there's a little area above his nose there. And the nose actually starts about a little less than halfway down into that rectangle there. It's pretty big. It forms a sort of a collapsed upside down triangle. And there's a line down the middle of the nose too that big cats have. Even little cats have it too. Some little highlights on there. And then that line that goes down to where his lips are, the left side of his lip doesn't extend as far as the right side of the lip. Get some chin hair in there. That's all white hair, except for the very middle of it is darker. And I'm drawing where the white occurs on the muzzle now. Coloring a little bit off the screen, but here I'm back on the screen. Trying to get the edge of the face in there and where the mane starts.
When you don't look at reference, or when I don't look at reference, I tend to make patterns of things, make things more regular than they really are. So if you're drawing mane or hair or anything like that, look for the irregularities, the chunks that aren't quite as big or long or pointy as other chunks. Some are darker, some are medium, some are blonde. And that's what's going to make it look more natural. You're getting this last side of the face over here, so we'll have a completed face to show you before I show you the whole thing. There we go. Now you can see the whole thing. And we're ready to start painting. Here are the 3 colors for our top left square, the one without much detail in it. We're going to use the primary red, which is a PYRROLE red, and ultramarine blue for the primary blue. Let's see what the red and blue look like directly mixed together. You can see it's a little bit muddy. It's not a pure purple. The red tends a little bit toward the orange on a color wheel, and we know that orange is the complement of blue. And when you mix complements, you will get, each color will be toned down a little bit, more grayish or brownish color. But here are some tints of these colors with different proportions of red and blue in, getting excess off my brush so I can continue mixing. There's a nice light purple. Drag some pure blue into it. There are lots of potential for some nice light colored tints of these 2 colors. Adding blue to it, that's about it. That is our gamut of colors for those 3 colors. Yeah, that's nice. So, and I'm not going to look at the reference very much for this. Now the rules I'm going by are I need to obey the lines that are drawn, because when the line crosses one rectangle into the next rectangle, I want it to make sense. I want there to be a continuity of line. There will not be a continuity of color. Maybe a little bit of continuity of color, because this next square, the one that direction, will have blue in it also, but it will be blue and yellow, I believe. Unless it's red and yellow. I forget what my chart says. But what about the main? What if right here is purple? Yeah. And I want to make a contrast there. Let me even add a little bit more white to this part of it here. I have done these patchwork paintings before, but not like this. I've done them as an introduction to acrylics with students. So I would give each student a piece of the puzzle, tell them to pick any 2 colors of acrylic and paint in the lines. And they can do shading, they can do patterns, they can do all kinds of stuff, but they have to obey the lines. But this one I'm doing all by myself. And my dog Chummy thinks she wants to help me, but that would be no help. Let's just make this a nice flow of color here. Now this is a medium red with the ultramarine blue. If you're following along and doing your own painting, if you choose a different red and a different blue, you're going to get different results. And in the blue and red square, there's nothing saying I can't use a pure red color. That's right, straight from the tube. Well, I have some purple still on my brush, so you see it isn't quite that pure. I went over the line. I'm using a fairly big brush for little details here.
When I get into the next 2 squares on the top, I'll probably use a smaller brush to get into more details. So I'm making that part of the lion's mane red. And I'm gonna wipe off some excess, and I want to get back to that dull lavender color. It's kind of smoky. And what if I made that point of the mane just a little more obvious? A little bit of white. Oh, that's cool. I'll make that a little brighter too. Okay. Now, what are we going to do up on the whole big area? We started with a deep purple. We can keep on going with that. I like that shade of purple that has a lot more blue in it. Let's go for some of that. So when I had each student pick any 2 colors, you got all kinds of stuff. And they could pick analogous colors, they could pick complementary colors, and it was very interesting. And some students really got the whole range of color in their puzzle piece, and others barely mixed the colors at all. It's a good way to see where students are at and see how they handle the paint. This was done by residents of a veterans home. I figured they would enjoy the eagle. The next one was done by junior and senior high students whose school mascot happened to be a bulldog. They didn't know it till they finished it, what they were doing. And this last one, hey, it's a lion. You can tell I love lions. This was done by an adult class. I like to cover up a canvas so that you don't see any little white dots. To paint pretty thickly. I'm going to need some more blue and red paint. I'm going to keep this dark. Maybe I'll make it get lighter as it goes toward this direction. And I think I need to use a bigger brush too. Yeah, this brush will cover territory faster. It's a little on the floppy side. Ooh. That's like a tomatoey red color. I didn't really intend for that. I didn't add any white to it. But we use some of that peeking through, I think. We'll keep it painterly. Look how you can see those brush strokes. It's often more interesting to see different colors. If I made this one flat color, I wouldn't be as interested in looking at it as if look at that brush shedding here. As if I have a lot of colors that flow into each other and stroked on top of each other. Okay, I want to get lighter as I go here. This is called scumbling, way of putting paint on. There, I'm just brush stroking, blending that reddish mistake in a little bit, and just making it look like a warm streak coming down through there. Okay. Yeah, there's about the same lightness I had. What if I get it a little bit lighter right next to the lion, because let's see if I can get even lighter than the lion is. Here we go. Okay. And when I have 2 shapes that meet each other in paint, I don't like to leave a space between them. I don't want you to see the marker line. I don't want you to see a faint little white line. I just want those 2 shapes to meet each other. This brush is a little bit sloppy to be doing that with. It's okay. There will always be the opportunity at the end of this painting, if this square looks nasty, it's acrylics and you can paint right over it and no one will ever know except us that it started out nasty. Okay, there. I'm going to take a smaller brush and shape up that piece of mane right there. Let's get some of that blue. And the thing I forgot when I started this was a tub of water. It doesn't matter so much with this because it's just such a big area and we're doing it relatively fast.
Okay, we're going to speed up the action a little bit for this last part of this first rectangle. And I'm doing a lot of scumbling. That is sometimes pressing your brush down really hard and swishing it around, and sometimes there you saw me wiping a lot of the paint off the brush, using a really dry brush to just blend what is there already on your canvas. Even though it's a soft blend, you can still see paint strokes. You can see a lot of different colors in this background part. And I like to see some kind of texture. I don't like it to look like it's airbrushed or, computer generated. It looks like a person did it. But I do pay attention to detail. Here you can see I got a smaller brush and I'm tidying up some of the lines on the lion's mane because I want them to be able to flow into the next squares and to have a more elegant look than the rough edges that I got from the big paintbrush. I'm tidying up the red and cleaning it off, and I'm gonna hit some of the paler shades in there also. So there we have it, our first completed rectangle. Now we're mixing colors. Join me for Strength in Color Mixing Part 2.